Good afternoon, everyone. This is no doubt the highlight of your day, the talent panel. I am Barnaby Parker. I'm the CEO of a business that, if you don't know by now, you certainly should. It's called Vanquis. And assuming that everyone in the room is talent, you'll need to know Vanquis. We specialise in change and transformation, and we work with a lot of the best of the established insurers, but we also work with the best of the startups across insurtech, fintech, and beyond. So I'm delighted to introduce a hand-picked, very special panel.
First of all, we have Chris Beasley of London Market. He's the CEO of Lloyds Market Group, which has a governing board of 18 from across the industry. The stated agenda is of growth and modernisation. And for those of you who aren't aware of Lloyds Market Group, it is a market-wide body that brings together the specialist commercial, insurance, reinsurance, broking and underwriting communities in London. Jason Sahota, he is the CEO of the InsurTech arm of Charles Taylor. Amongst many of his achievements, he has managed to grow an InsurTech business within an established brand from no employees to 220 employees in the last 3 years. I'm sure he'll tell us more as to how he's done that. David King, the MD, CEO, I think CEO and MDs are interchangeable, aren't they, nowadays? The MD of Artificial Labs. Artificial Labs is helping some of the major insurers leverage InsurTech for claims automation, broking systems, and he has just undertaken a major fundraising. So those of you who are in startup mode looking for fundraising, he will probably be a good man to provide some advice. And Zoe Cunningham, she is the managing director of Softwire, which is a specialist software development company. Apart from having joined Softwire as a graduate in 2000 and now leading the business, she is also a backgammon champion and actually features on the FCA's current advert with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So when you watch that ad again, see if you can spot her. So my first question to the panel, it is a talent panel, and the first question has to be, what exactly is talent? What do we mean by talent nowadays? And perhaps that's to you, Chris, as representative of the Lloyds markets. Are you ready to answer that?
Yes. Yes, that sounds as if it's working. Thank you, Barnaby. I'm going to put in a quick correction there, and that is that it's actually the London Market Group rather than the Lloyds Market Group. And the reason that I make that clarification is that the London market as a whole, which includes the Lloyds community, the insurance broking community, and indeed the insurance company community, is by far and a long way the largest commercial specialty insurance market in the world. It's larger than all of the other insurance markets put together and has been for well over 300 years, controlling around $91 billion of premium. And the reason that that's important is that what sits at its very foundation is talent. This is, and always has been, a people business. That has been at the very heart of its success historically, and I firmly believe will be going forwards as well. There are 52,000 people that work in the London market. The vast majority of those are all there working in half of a square mile. It's a really unique ecosystem that other people around the world have tried to copy, but they haven't been successful in doing so. So for me, talent is at the very core of the insurance business and indeed the London market. And I think, as I say, that's correct historically, and I think it's true going forwards as well. But I think what we need to think about going forwards is how the skill set and the talent needs are going to change. Because the skills that have served us well historically are not necessarily the skills that are going to keep us fit for the future. And I think, perhaps we'll come on to this in more detail in a moment, but I think if you look at the diversity of talent in the London market, we have our challenges cut out. I think if you look at the number of women in the market, I think that's well publicised, a challenge that we face, and indeed nationality. But for me, diversity of talent is a really broad spectrum. For me, it includes skill set, and it includes mindset as well. And I think if you look at, again, those skills that are going to make us successful in the future, whether that's data scientists enabling us to make the best use of our data, IT specialists, tech specialists, I think we have our challenge cut out, both in terms of identifying what we need, how do we attract that talent, and indeed how we retain that talent going forwards.
And how do, Jason, you've built a team of 220 people at Charles Taylor. What does talent mean to you? And how has that changed?
Yeah, so I was listening to the words Christopher was describing really carefully, and I think one that really stuck out to me, which I think encompasses a number of different things, is mindset. So if you have a mindset driven with passion of actually wanting to make a difference, that coupled with technical skills, management skills, sector skills, all of those things, is what's going to help us stay competitive as a sector and as an industry. And the interesting part, or an observation, having recruited lots and lots of people from varying backgrounds over the last couple of years, is people have the mindset, but actually you've got to give them the environment to get the best out of it. So it's all well and good having the talent, but actually often it can get wasted because they're not in an environment. And it's bringing those two things together. So I think we all as leaders in various different aspects have a duty of care, but it isn't just about talent. Talent has got to be encompassed to harness it and unleash it. So, the key word that I pick out of all of that is mindset and attitude.
So Zoe, has mindset been key to your success at Softwire?
That's a really interesting question. The talent certainly has. So for us, our business, we're a software development agency and we make custom software for businesses. Our business is our talent. Without our talent, we don't have a business. We can't make software without engineers, and our engineers aren't substitutable. We can't, you can't just get any old person in and get them to engineer. We wouldn't have a business anymore. So for us, it's about getting talent in the sense of people who are extremely good at what they do, not just people who have trained in it. Mindset is obviously essential in conjunction with that, because if you're able to do something and you don't choose to do it, then obviously that's going to be an issue. And mindset is actually key to being an extremely good engineer as well, that you need to be able to embrace challenges. There's a really fantastic flow chart describing what it's like to be a software developer, and it's basically like a little decision triangle, and then you go down and it says, and then you go down another one, it goes, and that is essentially, as a developer, you're constantly facing challenges, and it's very easy to come up with if I do all this then it works, and it's solving those problems that come up. So yes, mindset is key.
So David, Artificial Labs, are you recruiting the same sort of people that would work for some of the established insurers?
Good afternoon, everyone. I think in key areas, you very much need people that have London market experience.
And why would they join you? What are you doing to get them in?
Firstly, we're paying them a competitive rate. I think that's important to be said, that as a startup, we still need to pay people that are coming from established insurance company the going rate, including pension and other benefits, otherwise they won't come. We very much need to reiterate or reassure them that we've got the processes in place so that you're not going to leave a big insurer, come to a startup, every day you're just going to be making it up as you go along. So we need to reassure them that the processes are in place. And I think after you've reassured them on the fundamentals, then anybody that's a quality player wants to work with other quality people. So we say that we're trying to make substantial gains in the market. We're trying to be very disruptive. You're going to be working with some of the best people in the world. You're going to have access and responsibility. And also you're going to be able to do things a lot faster than you might have done at an incumbent.
Jason, you've probably got something to say on this. If we stick on the subject of mindset, how do you measure mindset? And actually, if I can tag on another question, which might give you some more thinking time, how do people stay? If you join a business with the right mindset, and I'm sure no one would join Charles Taylor without the right mindset, how do you stay relevant?
I'm sure there was at least 5 questions in that, but I'll give it a go. So I'll answer a bit of all of them in a bit of a combination. I think, it's an important point that David made, which is there are still some basic things that people are looking for. Yeah, so career progression, ability to do things differently, ability to grow as an individual, ability to bring their whole self to work. I know we use that often as a cliche when we talk about people, but actually people do want people to understand, actually there is a life outside of work. We all spend probably sometimes too much time at work, but there is a life outside of work. And, I've never been a fan of the term work-life balance, but work-life integration, I think, is always a better way of describing it. So when I think of mindset, I think about all of those different things. And me as an individual, I worry about those things. Therefore, people that you're looking for will do that. So how do you get them in the right mindset? I think ultimately they have to buy into what you're doing as a business, but that can't be the only thing. Ultimately, they have to see some of those basic things that I think all of us as human beings want to see. But I think they also need to feel that they're connected and contributing to it and actually being part of that journey. I think it's a really important point that often gets forgotten. You can come in, you could be the most talented person in whatever you do, yeah? But how do you keep propelling it and keeping it going? And so part of, I think, the whole interesting point of InsurTech overall is, for all of that, it's challenging the norms. It's looking for new ways to solve problems. It's looking at making a difference. Almost, the technology is interesting, but not the real point that's driving that. I also think we have a workforce in the UK that are looking for different things. I think just we as a nation, just not only in the UK, but are looking ultimately for different things when we come to work. And you can look back in the past and you can see different trends. So if you want the best people, you've got to be able to adapt as a business to create that environment to attract them.
I think that's a great point, that you need to get the offer right as to what you're offering people. And I think it's great to know that people are looking for the things we're offering. But at some point, you've got to connect the two things together. And I think one of the challenges we really face as an industry, and the London market in particular, is that despite all the significant work over recent years to get insurance out there, commercial specialty insurance out there as a great career choice, I think there's a huge amount of work that still needs to be done. I mean, you often come to this type of event and you say to all you folks who work in insurance, how many of you chose insurance as a first choice career? And it's usually a pitifully small handful that goes up. Most people fell into it, or they know somebody that was in it, or they're related to somebody that was in it. And actually, do you know what? This is a phenomenal career. It's a huge breadth of experiences one can go and get, but we need to do much, much more to get that message out there and ensure that we're fishing in a much, much larger pond than we're currently fishing in.
One of the thoughts that I have is we're at a a tech conference is that technology is horizontal, and we're talking about insurance as a vertical. Should we be more, and one of the clear trends which is going on, and it's nice on the day that Uber's been rescinded, we'll see what happens, but one of the clear trends is clearly one of more self-employment, gig economy, and so on. So combining perhaps the need for greater technology or tech savvy within insurance and that trend, should we be more flexible in terms of what we're offering our employees and perhaps not expect them to be with us for as long as, this doesn't apply to Vanquis employees, by the way, should we perhaps not expect them to be with us as long as we'd like?
I don't want to hog the microphone, guys, but I'm going to kick off. I mean, I think we need to look very carefully at the environment within the industry that we offer, which I think touched on the point earlier on. I mean, I've got jeans on today, which is a bit different, but it was primarily because it was Jeans for Jeans Charity Day. But with half a mind, I was coming to an InsurTech conference, and I think if you look at the environment that we offer as an insurance market, in terms of the fact it's offices, in terms of the fact that it's generally suits and ties and generally 9 to 5 and generally office-based rather than home-based, and generally we sit on chairs rather than beach balls. And I think we just need, as an industry, to take one big step outside and look in at ourselves and think, is this really an environment that is going to attract that diversity of skill set that I really think we need?
Zoe, I know you've created an interesting environment at Softwire. So can we get the mic to you?
Yeah, that's actually a really great description of something that I think does need to change. So, and when you said, Barnaby, that changing jobs frequently doesn't apply to Vanquis employees, it doesn't apply to Softwire employees either. But we've made a very specific effort to make that the case. I'm wearing jeans today because I wear jeans every day, and I actually thought, do I need to dress differently to go to an InsurTech conference from how I would usually dress as a technologist? And things like that are inordinately important to people who work in technology. So something that we have found can be a challenge for us working with all kinds of financial institutions is that in general, engineers don't like rules where there isn't a reason for it. So it's very, and it's something that it becomes a principle and it becomes a point of principle. And then, of course, you have to remunerate people well, but actually giving them that freedom to control their own environment is more important than money. So actually for us, we have quite a lot of different things running through the company that mean people stay with us for a long time. So we have a lot of perks and morale holidays. We're all heading off to Poland next week for a holiday together. But we also have a really strong sense of democracy and trust and inclusivity. If we're making big decisions in the company, we involve all of the employees and listen to their opinions. That's super important. And it's something that is slightly non-traditional, but is going to become the norm. It's going to be the case that you won't be able to keep your talent unless you do this. We also focus very much on whether people are enjoying their day-to-day jobs, whether the actual work that they're doing is fulfilling for them. And then obviously there's, as always already been mentioned, career progression and development and where are people going in the future.
Is the word that springs to mind here is one of leadership. Should we be looking at the types of leaders that perhaps the types of leaders that we are and the types of leaders that we're looking to develop?
To go back on some of your points, I think there's a bit of, it'd be naive to say that the insurance profession isn't very formal. I think the focus on that, though, isn't as important as the discussion is at the moment. And the reason behind that is I think engineers, as you quite rightly said, they need a reason to do stuff. But if you say to an engineer, you can use the technology stack that you want to use, you can work with other great people, I'm going to pay you lots of money, there's a huge market we can disrupt, you have to sit next to somebody that's wearing a suit most of the day because they're an analyst and they go to see insurance companies, is that all right with you? They're going to say yes. If you say, I'm going to pull down the ceiling so you can see the air conditioning, you can wear a T-shirt, but you're going to have to use a technology stack that you're not happy with, and you have to do a change request every time that you want to submit some code, they're going to say no. So I think whilst it is important, it's not actually the fundamentals. And the fundamentals are, what are they working on day to day? Are they making a difference? And is there a reason for everything that they're doing?
So leadership. Jason, you've got the microphone. So as a leader in an insurtech business, how is your leadership style different, if it is different, to, or give me some of your successful leadership qualities.
So I suppose the first thing I do is I try my best every day to do things in a way that if I was part of a team, that I would want my leader, who I was looking at, to behave at. So, you know, do I want an environment that's a bit of a work hard, play hard environment? Yes. It goes a little bit to David's point, which is if you're buying into certain things, actually, you might work a bit harder because you're buying into what you're actually doing. I think it's really important, and we underestimate it. There's got to be some kind of vision out there. You know, it's a responsibility of a leader to set a vision. It's also your responsibility to create the environment to get there. Too many people describe themselves as leaders. I think no individual should ever describe themselves as a leader. I always believed in that adage of an individual walks, and if you turn around and there's some people following you, it's probably a good chance you are a leader. But anybody who sits there and says, I'm a leader, because I'm a CEO, does not make me a leader. CEO means I have a role to play in the business that I'm in. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm a leader. And I think there's been so many different ways and schools of thoughts and things, but me personally, I'm much more in my role is to support everybody else. That's the mindset I have. My role isn't to tell everybody what to do. I have to create an environment where people are okay to make mistakes. And I actually, a little bit going to Christopher's point before, I'm somebody that wasn't in insurance until 2 and a bit years ago, who made a conscious decision to come into insurance. And I think we talk about suits and shoe polishing and all of the other bits and pieces of the London market as an example. I put that in the tradition bucket, right? So why can't you change but still keep tradition? And I think sometimes we get confused with these concepts and we chuck them all into this bucket and say, we've got to change, we need all these different things. I think you have to be brave if you're a leader. If you're going to do something different, you have to be brave enough to do it. Now, with that comes consequences. Well, guess what? Nothing's going to change unless people do that.
David? You took the mic.
Okay then, I think in terms of leadership, as Jason quite rightly said, it's about ensuring everybody has got the tools to do what they need to do on a day-to-day basis. I think in this period of change that we're going through at the moment, there are too many opportunities almost. So especially in a startup, and I'm sure across the panel, there is a lot of excitement and all of the staff want to do lots of things every day. And it's probably quite easy to go out and sell into insurance companies lots of different grand visions on a regular basis. But then you've got to deliver those and hold up your brand name, and you've got to ensure that you have the resources and that you don't overwhelm certain people, so particularly analysts and developers. And so I think that to touch on something you might not have touched on as much is the ability to say no and trying to manage expectations internally as well as externally, because of course everyone wants to build an empire and take over the world, but you've got a limited amount of resources and it's just allocating that.
Just to add my 2 pennies worth on leadership then, I think in my mind it's quite simple, and I think if you hire the best people, then your role as a leader is to clear the issues out the way and let them get on with what they're good at, quite simply. I think that's your role.
So the difference between there are plenty of startups here today, and there are plenty of people from established businesses. What is the real difference between these startups and working in a startup and working in an established business? Perhaps considering some of the people in the audience who might be thinking about where they would want to work, why might they choose a Willis, an Amlin, a Charles Taylor, as opposed to a Artificial Labs or one of the brand new startups? I shouldn't
Given you
Charles
mentioned a bigger company, and I'm probably the only one that's part of a bigger company, but I suppose I'll kick off. I think part of it is security. You know, you said at the outset, I've tried to build a startup business under a bigger brand. That actually, for a lot of people, gives a compromise of getting a lot of the things that are very appealing of a startup, but unfortunately, I've got some responsibilities that taking a risk at this point in my life, too far down the road, is a bit too much. Now, we could argue that we've conditioned people to worry about these things, and therefore that's just a reality, and actually they shouldn't worry about it because actually, even if it's a small organization, it's okay. But I think we have to accept that there is a reality check out there that a large number of people will worry about the security of it. That doesn't mean they're not talented. It doesn't mean they're not brilliant people. Just they're worrying about certain things on the other parts of their lives. Should bigger organizations create an environment that offers the same characteristics of change and behavior? And I don't think this just only applies to technology. It should apply to every role in any part of the insurance sector. I think they have a duty to do that, because if they don't, the talented people will go to a big company that has worked out how to do it.
I think the difference that we see most is the difference between small companies and large companies. So there is a difference in risk between a risky company and a less risky company. We're 130 people as an organisation, but we're actually very low risk in terms of the way the business is set up. So we do have people join us and stay with us for a long time. But the difference that we see is that we're very flexible and we're able to change directions and decide what to do really quickly, because essentially there are fewer moving parts and it's a less complex organisation. And that works. So something that I've really benefited from is being able to do lots of different roles throughout my career. So I started as an engineer, but then I went on from that to do typical career progression things such as managing engineering projects or working as a consultant, but I also got to run recruitment for a while, moved to the business development team, and suddenly I was doing totally different jobs, actually needing totally different skill sets that were a little bit out of my comfort zone. But that's been a fantastic development opportunity for me to be able to do things that are so different. And I think that comes from the business being small and being able to mix things up a bit, take a chance on things more easily than a larger business.
Chris, you mentioned the diversity word, and it's the insurance dive-in next week. So how important is diversity in the insurance market?
I think diversity is incredibly important in the market, and I think we've got our work cut out. If you look at women that work in the London insurance market, the percentage of senior executive directors that are women has just increased from 3% to 5% from 2013 to 2015, versus a FTSE 100 average of 21%. I think if you look at the nationality breakdown, we have non-UK nationals of 11% in the London market versus the investment banks of 36%. So I think if you look at some of the things we are trying to achieve as a truly global insurance market, it feels pretty much common sense that one needs a more diverse workforce, more reflective of our clients, with a truly global and diverse understanding of the cultures, the risks, and opportunities that there are. But as I said earlier on, I think diversity is a very broad spectrum, and I think skill set and mindset are equally important. I think if you look at age, it's important as well. I mean, in the London insurance market, we've got a challenge around an aging population, dare I say. The average age of a Lloyd's managing agency CEO is 54. So if you come back to the skills that a CEO needs, dealing with huge catastrophes through the world, really helping clients get back on their feet in times of real strife, do the leaders of the future have the skills that have equipped our leaders of the past to steer us through those times so well? So I think across the whole spectrum, we need a much more diverse workforce, and we've got our work cut out to achieve that.
So just following on diversity, David, you have, I think, 40 staff? Nearly 40 staff, soon to be 40 staff. So, and you set up 2 years ago? Yes. So how important has diversity been to you as a startup?
Down it goes.
Diversity is super important. I think as a startup, they don't really have the option. You have to employ the best people that are available. If you think that the best people are always middle-class white guys, then you're a fool. So you employ the best people you are, or the company will fail. In terms of the government hasn't helped us very much with Brexit, or I'm not confident that the government has provided us the reassurance that we can go and get the people wherever we need to. But of course, diversity is important. I don't really think it's a matter for discussion in terms of us as a startup, because we can't influence any policy, but we just employ the best that we can find. And I think we've been fortunate to date, especially through the help of a great recruitment firm, that we've managed to get a wide, diverse workforce.
It's interesting when you're thinking about diversity within technical roles, so technology and engineering, because I think training for those roles starts very young. And although I don't mean training in the sense of studying computer science, but just studying STEM subjects at school, and feeling that mathematics is for you and something that you could be good at and you want to be good at, I think that is very key from a very young age, because mathematics is very cumulative. So for us, our diversity is not brilliant as a kind of almost startup. And it's something we're really concerned about. And we've done a lot of analysis of our recruitment statistics from applicants to hires, and the problem is not at that point. The problem is even people who are able to apply for the roles. And young people are making choices that are blocking them off from engineering roles early on, and that's a big issue.
I'll give my 2 cents worth then. I'll say diversity is about respect. You know, I think that's an important thing. I agree with the points, made. I think there's a multitude of things that have got to be sorted out, yeah? Christopher talked about percentages of certain groups in certain areas. Well, if the people aren't there with the skills to do it, guess what? It's a really small pool, and it goes back to talent. So your talent pool is a lot smaller. So there's a whole load of things that I think need to be done fundamentally to say, how do we grow that pool and make it bigger? So there's some structural things. You've got to kind of wind the clock back. But it's interesting, yes, okay, you look at engineering, mathematics, all of these kind of numerically based subjects, if you were talking about technical engineers, there is still a greater proportion than that is attracted to the insurance industry, right? So there is some fundamental things that you've got to think about, which is, okay, there may only be 20% in this particular subject that graduate that fall into this category, but why is it that 19% of them are going somewhere else? Yeah? And for somebody who's worked across lots of different sectors, it's an easy thing to talk about. Well, actually, in this particular skill, we tend to look at it functionally and say, well, in technology, how many people do computer science? Well, it's probably higher in some sectors than others. So there's clearly environments and things that are attracting people that we're not doing today. I do think that is one of the biggest drivers why, particularly the newer, younger workforce that's coming through, are particularly attracted to these small startup environments. I think there's a number of other factors that attract them, but there's a fundamental point where if you actually look at some of these newer organizations, they are attracting different profiles of people. Could be a group of friends that were at university that decided to start something up. That could have been the dynamic. There could be a whole load of different things. So, you know, we can't automatically increase the pool. It's not going to happen overnight. But I think we've got to, me personally, I think collectively, everybody's kind of got to get together. If I just focus on the insurance sector, I focus on the UK as a, but how do we create an environment where we start attracting more of that pool, and what else do we do to bring and make that pool bigger? Because that's a good thing for everybody. So, you know, how can that be a bad thing?
I've got the microphone before we get it back. I was talking percentages, so I'll add one more in there. I think you're absolutely right on those points made, but I think also within the leadership of the London market firms, there's an issue there as well. We did a survey last year of the London market firms, and 93% of the respondents said that they don't look outside of the London market as a priority when it comes to recruiting talent. And I think if we're just going to continue recruiting ourselves, then despite talent being attracted to our industry from outside, then we're not going to make any progress in increasing that diversity.
So we've got 5 minutes left. Is there anyone in the audience that has a question? There is. I think we only have one microphone, so would you like to? Do we have only one microphone? That's all right, we can share.
So the current consensus in sort of behavioral economics and occupational psychology is that allowing human judgment into the hiring process is actually greatly inhibitive because of all our heuristics and biases. And I think in particular, one of the effects of this is a lack of diversity. And actually that using much more structured hiring processes, as much as we all hate them as grads, online tests, highly structured video interviews, things like this, are actually a far better way to go about it. Are any of you within your companies trying to make a move towards these slightly less personable but more objective hiring processes?
Good question. Okay, all yours, Zoe.
So we use a mixture of online tests and in-person tests. I think I absolutely don't disagree with your premise that this is known to be an issue. The idea of handing over recruitment, which is an extremely important part of our business, completely to an automated process, absolutely scares the living daylights out of me. So I think that there is some sense in which you have to retain human judgment, and then you have to perhaps look at how you can augment that to get a better result. And I know there's an organisation called Gap Jumpers who do quite a lot of work in bringing people from backgrounds that would not be traditionally funneled into these roles. And obscuring that for the purposes of at least first-level interview. And I think initiatives like that can do a good deal to improve diversity.
Another question. You have to come up to the front, I'm afraid. Okay, shout. How do you, the question I think is how do you put diversity processes into your recruitment processes? How do you check for diversity? Is that right?
Due to the shortage of people that we found that top quality, we've gone to China to employ people, we've gone to the Caribbean, we've been quite fortunate with some of the visa situations. So for example, in the Caribbean, where we've reached out there to attract people, they've had French citizenships. So with the EU, we've been able to relocate them to London. And in instances where we can't relocate them, we've just left them where they are. As long as we're compliant with the data laws there, then they can work for us where they are.
I haven't got the answer to that one, but I think on a related point, I think one of the issues that we've got is that we don't showcase great examples of how people have done this well through the market. And whilst I accept that human capital is undoubtedly a source of competitive advantage, this is too big and too important an issue to not be sharing some of those examples, because ultimately we need to do this. We were talking about the industry as a whole just now, and we need to be learning from each other as to how we can do that.
There's a combination, isn't there? On the one hand, diversity is crucial for all of our businesses, and putting into place scientific methods for assessing talent is also crucially important. At the same time, we're all human beings, and we want the people that fit into our culture, and it's that perhaps Lloyd's and the insurance sector is grappling with, and perhaps we all of us grapple with. I think our time is up. No one's said it is, so if we've got one more question, we don't have any more questions. Right, so thank you very, very much. Thank you to Sebastian and InsurTech, and thank you very much to Zoe, David, Jason and Chris, and all of you.